Gender roles in the 1920s. The 19th Amendment, passed in 1920, gave way for women in the United States. It brought forth a new generation of women who embraced their newfound freedom and took advantage of the opportunities that came with it. In the 1920s, women in marriages were expected to devote themselves to the family by raising children and taking care of the household. Because of the extreme change in women's rights during the 20s, women found the need for independence, which in turn meant divorce or to continue staying single so that they could take advantage of their new financial and societal opportunities. The changing times opened up jobs in the office as well as in the factories to women, allowing them to gain a sense of financial freedom. During this period, the number of marriages and births were at an all-time low, and the number of divorces skyrocketed. Life was more about independence and having fun, rather than being bound to a family and throwing away your dreams because of it. Ethnicity and status played a big role in affecting women's opportunities in society. African American women, for example, were limited in society in all ways a lot more than white women because of their skin color. It was so difficult for some African American women that they resorted to methods of skin bleaching and also straightened their hair so that they would resemble a white person more. The 19th Amendment, which allowed women to participate in national voting, gave way for female independence and the rise of flapper culture. These flappers pushed to break through economic, political, and sexual barriers for women through their rebellious and unorthodox behavior.
1920 witnessed a new cohort of young middle-class college-educated women move into clerical and professional jobs. Although these positions were less career-oriented and of a lower status than those of their male counterparts, such work gave many of these women substantial financial independence. Women also were able to take jobs in the factory as well as in retail stores environment. Before the 20s, women were limited to the household, and even with their contribution to the workforce during World War I, they were forced to return to the house after it ended. Although women were given more opportunities, they still suffered from low pay, low hours, poor working conditions, and little to no labor union protection. The 20s paved way for women's education as well, allowing them to acquire a degree which in return gives them a better opportunity for jobs. From the start of the decade, only 19% of degrees were awarded to women. However, by 1928, the number rose to 39%, which was a clear improvement in those times. In the 1920s, women didn't have the same rights as men. Women active in politics in 1929 still had little power, but they had begun the journey to actual political equality. The first version of an Equal Rights Amendment is introduced. It says, men and women shall have equal rights throughout the United States and every place subject to its jurisdiction. They also obtained the right to vote with the passing of the 19th Amendment.
A suffragette was a member of militant women's organizations in the early 20th century who, under the banner Votes for Women, fought for the right to vote in public elections, also known as women's suffrage. A few of the most influential suffragettes included Susan B. Anthony, who was one of the earliest activists for women's rights. She was also a writer, lecturer, and a leading figure in fighting for women's suffrage, as well as Alice Paul, who was a sociologist and an activist for women's rights. She was also one of the leading figures of the campaign for the 19th Amendment.
The shift of women's fashion and the impact it gave to breaking gender roles of the time period. The women's fashion broke through the gender roles because this was a time where women decided to break out their shells and embrace their freedom and independence to make a change for themselves and to show that they were as capable as men were and everybody else. This fashion style included short flapper style clothes that provided freedom of movement, striking Art Deco designs, crochet hats and bobbed hairstyles, the Boris Garçon look and adoption of male clothing, and fun fringe flapper dresses or glamorous silk gowns for evening attire. Around 1923, French designer Coco Chanel introduced what became known as the Garçon look, featuring not just high heminess but dropped or non-existent waistlines and straight sleeveless tops, with lighter and more flexible undergarments that created a straight, slim silhouette. This new design allowed women to dance freely. This also caused a generation of young Western women in the 1920s called the flappers. The flappers wore short skirts, bobbed their hair, listened to jazz, and flaunted their disdain for what was then considered acceptable behavior. They would also express their young and energetic personalities through dancing and indulging other activities that were previously taboo.